Lupita sat by the washing machine, watching the laundry pile up as if it multiplied with every passing second. A strange sense of tranquility settled over her. It was one of those days when everything felt ordinary, almost dull. The gentle hum of the machine filled the room, and Lupita found her thoughts drifting aimlessly. Then, as she reached over to grab another load, her nephew entered the room, breaking the stillness. He had changed so much recently, no longer the small boy she remembered, but now tall, self-assured, carrying a presence that was impossible to ignore. Without much thought, Lupita casually asked, "Hi, why don't you help me with this? You could start learning a few of these chores." It was meant as a light-hearted suggestion, but the way his eyes fixed on hers made her heart skip a beat. There was something in his look and intensity that caught her off guard. A part of her wanted to dismiss it, but as they stood there, the tension between them became more tangible. After a brief pause, he shrugged and stepped closer, saying, "Sure, why not?" in a low, steady voice, sending a shiver down Lupita's spine. She quickly turned away, feeling her cheeks warm. It was just laundry, nothing more, so why was her heart racing like this? They started working side by side. He passed her the clothes, and she placed them in the washing machine. It was simple, almost automatic, but each time their hands brushed, she felt a jolt of energy. It seemed accidental at first, but soon it grew into something more. His touch lingered a little longer, his body subtly drawing nearer to hers. Lupita tried to focus on the task, but her thoughts wandered, fixated on their closeness and the unspoken tension between them. Minutes stretched into what seemed like hours, and the room felt warmer with every second. Maybe it was the heat from the machine or the proximity of their bodies, but she could feel the temperature rise. Her mouth felt dry, and she found herself avoiding his gaze. The attraction building between them became impossible to ignore, yet she struggled to admit it, even silently. Then suddenly, he reached out his hand, brushing hers in a way that was anything but accidental. Lupita looked up, meeting his eyes, and the intensity there was unmistakable. Her heart thundered in her chest as he stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the warmth coming from him. She should have taken a step back, put some space between them, but she didn't. Instead, she remained still, unsure but curious about what might happen next. Neither of them spoke, the silence heavy with unspoken feelings and thoughts they hadn't yet dared to confront. His hand reached for hers again, this time with more intention, his fingers wrapping around hers in a grip that was both firm and gentle. Lupita's breath caught in her throat. This was wrong, it couldn't be right. But as he drew her nearer, everything else melted away. The room, the laundry, the world outside, none of it mattered anymore. It was just the two of them standing on the brink of something that couldn't be undone. He leaned in, his face so close to hers. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. Lupita felt his breath against her skin, warm and inviting, and her heart hammered in her chest. She knew she should stop him, should say something, anything, but she couldn't. She was too lost in the moment, overwhelmed by the desire that had built between them for what felt like forever. And then, before she could fully grasp what was happening, his lips brushed against hers. It was a gentle kiss at first, almost hesitant, as if he was offering her a chance to pull back, to end whatever this was before it went too far. But Lupita didn't pull away. Instead, she found herself leaning into the kiss, her hands instinctively reaching for him, pulling him closer. The kiss grew deeper, and all the tension, all the unsaid words flowed into that single moment. It was intoxicating, the way his lips moved with hers, the way his hands gently roamed over her skin. Every touch, every kiss sent a shiver through her. It felt like they had crossed a boundary that couldn't be uncrossed, and yet Lupita couldn't bring herself to care. In that moment, all she wanted was him, and it seemed he felt the same. They finally pulled apart, both of them gasping for breath, their foreheads pressed together as they struggled to steady themselves. Lupita should have felt guilty, maybe even ashamed, but all that consumed her was an intense desire to keep going. His hand slid down her arms, and Lupita could feel the heat of his touch through the thin material of her clothes. Her mind spun in a frenzy of emotions that she couldn't quite grasp, but her body was certain of what it wanted. Without a word, he drew her close again, his lips finding hers once more. This time, the kiss was more urgent, more frantic, as if they both understood this was wrong but couldn't bring themselves to stop. Lupita's fingers went through his hair as she pressed herself against him, wanting to be as close as possible. Every inch of her was burning, and she could feel that same heat radiating from him. As their kisses became more passionate and intense, a sense of urgency grew within her. Her mind shouted for her to pause, to consider what they were doing, but her body ignored the warning. The pull between them was too powerful, too undeniable. They stumbled backward.